Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm still absolutely blown away by all your amazing support as we keep pushing towards that 10k subscriber goal. Every like and comment means the world to me and helps our community grow even more. Today's video is super special. I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you're new here, consider joining our awesome community by hitting that subscribe button. Now, let's dive right in. The musty smell of decades-old cardboard and deteriorating magnetic tape filled Thomas Cooper's nostrils as he pushed open another unmarked door in the abandoned NASA storage facility. After 38 years as an archivist for the space agency, he thought his final task before retirement would be simple: catalogue and clear out storage facility B7, one of the oldest buildings on the Houston campus. The December rain drummed against the metal roof, creating an oddly comforting rhythm as Tom swept his flashlight across rows of forgotten boxes and equipment. His footsteps echoed through the cavernous space, disturbing decades of dust. Most of what he'd found so far had been mundane: technical manuals from the 60s, boxes of degraded backup tapes and endless stacks of computer printouts. But something about room 18 made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The room itself was smaller than the others, tucked away in a corner where the building's fluorescent lights had long since failed. His flashlight beam caught something metallic glinting from a shelf near the back. As he approached, Tom noticed the shelf was the only one in the room, with a padlock, now rusted and broken with age. "What did you want to keep hidden?" he muttered, reaching for the strange metallic object. It was a hard drive, but unlike any he'd seen before. The casing was made of an unusually heavy alloy, and across its surface were deep grooves that looked unsettlingly like claw marks. A faded label caught his eye. Tom's hands trembled slightly. There had never been an Apollo 18. The program ended with Apollo 17 in December 1972. He'd spent his entire career archiving NASA's history. This shouldn't exist. Turning the drive over, he noticed more of those strange marks, deeper on this side, as if whatever made them had been desperate to get at what was inside. A small note was taped to the bottom, the handwriting shaky and urgent. "If found, destroy immediately. Some things must stay buried. JM." Tom should have followed those instructions. He should have dropped the drive right there and walked away. Instead, he carefully placed it in his briefcase, signed out of the facility for the last time, and drove home through the rain. In his home office, surrounded by decades of space program memorabilia, Tom connected the drive to a specialized reader he used for recovering data from obsolete storage devices. To his surprise, the drive spun to life immediately, as if it had been waiting all these years for someone to find it. Most of the files were corrupted, but a few remained intact. The first was a video file dated December 14th, 1973, 12:01 a.m. Tom's computer screen flickered as he clicked play, and the face of Commander James Mitchell filled the screen. He looked tired but determined, his NASA uniform crisp and new. "This is Commander James Mitchell recording pre-launch briefing for Apollo 18. This mission record is classified above top secret. If you're watching this, something has gone very wrong." Tom leaned closer to the screen, unaware that behind him the shadows in his office were beginning to move in ways shadows shouldn't. And on his hand, where he had touched those strange marks on the drive, a small geometric pattern had begun to form on his skin. Commander Mitchell's video log continued to play as Tom settled deeper into his chair. Mission parameters came down directly from the Joint Chiefs after Apollo 17's unexplained radio anomalies and Harrison Schmidt's incident. "We've been tasked with investigating a signal detected at Shackleton Crater. 3-man crew, myself, pilot Robert Kane, and Science Officer David Chen. If anyone's watching this, I need to make something clear. We weren't supposed to exist. Apollo 18 was officially cancelled. What you're about to see is the real reason NASA abandoned the moon. The video crackled, showing pre-launch preparations. Tom noticed something odd. All identifying markings had been stripped from their equipment. The Saturn V rocket gleamed under floodlights, a ghost-white phantom against the night sky. 12:01 a.m. launch window chosen for minimal civilian observation, Mitchell's voice continued. Kane's been jumpy since final briefing. Chen hasn't said much since they showed us the real data from Apollo 17. Can't blame them. Those photos shouldn't have been possible. Static interrupted the recording. When it cleared, they were already in flight. The camera showed Robert Kane at the controls, his hands steady, but his face tense. David Chen floated in the background, methodically checking equipment that Tom had never seen on any other Apollo mission. Kane reporting 12 hours into flight. The pilot's voice was clipped, professional, all systems nominal, though Houston, we're getting that same harmonic interference that 17 reported, like something singing out there. More static. Then Chen's voice. These readings don't make sense. The moon's mass is fluctuating. Subtle, but it's there. Almost like it's breathing. The next segment showed their approach to lunar orbit. The moon filled the command module's windows, but something was wrong with the image. Tom paused the playback, leaning close to his screen. There, at the moon's limb, where sunlight met shadow, he could swear he saw geometric patterns shifting, rearranging themselves like living circuit boards. December 15th, 2:45 a.m. Mitchell's voice was different now, strain evident in every word. We've achieved lunar orbit. Houston's gone quiet about the anomalous readings. Kane spotted something during our third orbit, a light down in Shackleton. There shouldn't be anything there. It pulsed in a pattern, 3 short, 2 long, pause, repeat, almost like it was beckoning us. Tom's office had grown cold. He pulled his jacket tighter, noticing his breath was now visible in the air. On his hand, the geometric pattern had spread past his wrist, tracing impossible angles under his skin. The video showed their descent toward the lunar surface. The landing radar was going haywire, showing depth readings that went miles deeper than the moon's crust should allow. Then, through the window, something moved in the darkness of the crater. Houston, this is Apollo 18 actual. Mitchell's voice shook slightly. We're picking up. I don't know how to describe it. The surface is wrong. The maps are wrong. There's something down there, and it knows we're here. The image began to distort, but not before Tom caught a glimpse of what had frightened Mitchell. At the crater's edge, perfectly geometric shadows were moving against the sun's light, forming and reforming into patterns that hurt his eyes. And in the center of it all, a perfect circle of darkness, an entrance to something that had been waiting a very long time for visitors. The video cut out. Tom's computer screen flickered, then displayed a single line of text. They will come for you now. You've seen too much. Behind him, the shadows had begun to take shape, and a faint, rhythmic humming filled the air. 3 pulses, 2 long, pause, repeat. The next video file was corrupted, displaying only fragments of imagery between bursts of static. Tom's hands shook as he adjusted the playback settings, trying to salvage what he could. His office had grown colder still, frost now forming on the windows despite the Houston heat outside. December 15th, 8:15 a.m. Lunar module touchdown successful. Mitchell's voice came through clearly, despite the visual distortion. We've landed approximately 400 meters from the signal source. Kane's preparing for first EVA. Chen hasn't stopped staring at those crystal formations we spotted during descent. The video stabilized, showing the lunar surface through the module's window. Crystalline structures dotted the landscape, their blue luminescence pulsing in perfect synchronization. They seemed to grow directly from the regolith, but their angles were too perfect, their patterns too precise to be natural. "Beginning EVA," Kane's voice crackled through. "Temperature readings are... that can't be right. The crystals are putting out some kind of energy signature. It's... Christ, it's modulating in response to our presence." The camera followed Kane as he descended the ladder. His movements were stiff, uncertain. The lunar surface beneath his feet seemed to shimmer, as if the regolith itself was reacting to his touch. In the background, those crystalline formations pulsed faster. "Houston, be advised." Kane's breathing had accelerated. "Movement at my 3 o'clock. I know that's impossible at this distance from the Terminator line, but I'm seeing... shadows. They're moving against the sunlight. Request immediate." Static overwhelmed the transmission. When it cleared, Kane was back inside the module, his suit covered in a fine, geometric pattern of dust that seemed to shift position when viewed indirectly. "Report from first EVA." Mitchell's voice was tight with controlled fear. Kane encountered anomalous visual phenomena. Chen's sensors recorded massive energy spikes during the incident. The crystals... they're not growing from the surface, God help us, they're growing from something below. The camera panned to Chen, who was hunched over his instruments. "These readings suggest the crystal structures are part of a larger network. They're communicating with each other, and something else. The signal pattern changed the moment we landed, like a security system activating." Tom paused the playback, his eyes drawn to the window of his office. The frost had formed into those same geometric patterns he'd seen in the video. They were spreading, growing more complex by the second. The humming had grown louder, and now carried a distinct rhythm that made his teeth ache. The video resumed on its own. "December 15th, 11:45 p.m. We've lost contact with Houston." Mitchell sounded exhausted. "The signal's gotten stronger. Kane's been... different since the EVA. He keeps repeating something in his sleep. Coordinates of some kind." Chen translated part of the crystal's energy pattern. He says they're not just a network, they're a countdown." The image shifted to show the lunar surface through the module window again. The crystalline formations had multiplied, their pulsing now synchronized with the humming in Tom's office. But it was what lay beyond them that made his blood run cold. There, at the edge of the illuminated area, was a perfect circle of darkness. It hadn't been there in the earlier footage. The surrounding regolith was arranged in concentric patterns, like ripples in water, all leading towards that impossible void, and something was emerging from it. "They're here," Kane's voice came through, unnaturally calm. "They've been waiting for us for so long. We shouldn't have come. We shouldn't have seen. The moon is..." The video cut out again. Tom's computer screen displayed new text. "You have activated the beacon. Preparation protocols initiated." The geometric patterns on Tom's arm had spread to his chest now, burning cold against his skin. In the reflection of his screen, he saw that the shadows behind him had taken on distinct shapes, angular, precise, and moving with purpose. And beneath his feet, he felt a vibration. 3 pulses, 2 long pause, repeat. But this time, it wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below. The next segment of footage began with emergency lighting casting a red glow inside the lunar module. Commander Mitchell's face appeared haggard, his eyes sunken and dark. "December 16th, 3:30 a.m. This may be our last chance to document what's happening. The crystals have completely surrounded the LM. Their energy output has quadrupled. Chen believes they're some kind of beacon or a key." Tom watched, his breath creating small clouds in the freezing air of his office, as the camera panned to show David Chen frantically working at his instruments. The scientist's movements were jerky, unnatural, as if fighting against some invisible force. "The tunnel appeared an hour ago," Chen spoke without looking up. "Perfect cylindrical bore, 3 meters in diameter. Initial scans suggest it extends at least 2 miles. beneath the surface. But that's impossible. The depth readings keep changing, like the space inside isn't fixed. The footage jumped to an exterior shot. Kane was standing at the tunnel's entrance, his spacesuit now covered in shifting patterns that matched the surrounding crystals. The camera's auto-exposure struggled with the absolute darkness of the opening. It wasn't just dark, it seemed to be consuming light itself. Kane reporting, his voice had taken on an odd resonance. The seismic equipment is picking up rhythmic vibrations from below. They match the crystal pulses exactly. Commander, you need to see this. The walls, they're inscribed with something. The camera moved closer to the tunnel's edge. Tom leaned forward despite himself, his fingers leaving frost patterns on his desk. There, carved into the impossibly smooth walls, were symbols. They seemed to shift and change when not directly observed, forming new patterns that hinted at meanings just beyond comprehension. Houston, if you're receiving this, Mitchell's voice shook. The symbols, they're showing us things. History, but not our history. The moon. God help us, it's not what we thought. It's never been what we thought. Static interrupted the feed again. When it cleared, all 3 astronauts were outside the module. The crystals had grown larger, their pulsing now so bright it overwhelmed the camera's sensors. The geometric patterns on the ground had begun spiraling toward the tunnel entrance, as if being drawn in by some immense force. Chen's translations were right, Kane said, his voice now overlaid, with a harmonic tone that made Tom's teeth vibrate. It's not just a tunnel, it's an invitation. They want us to see. They need us to understand why they put it here. Why they've been watching. The camera suddenly jerked towards the tunnel's entrance. Something was moving in that impossible darkness. Shapes that seemed to fold through dimensions that shouldn't exist, casting shadows that moved independently of any light source. Commander Mitchell, final log entry. The voice was barely a whisper now. Houston's last transmission warned us to pull out. But it's too late. We have to go in. Kane says they're waiting for us. That this was always going to happen. The whole program, every mission. We were being led here. To this moment. The video feed began to break up, but not before capturing one final image. The 3 astronauts entering the tunnel. Their suits now covered in pulsing symbols that matched the walls. Behind them, the lunar surface seemed to ripple, as if something vast was stirring beneath. In Tom's office, the humming had become unbearable. The geometric patterns on his skin were now moving, forming and reforming into symbols identical to those in the tunnel. His computer screen flickered one last time. The preparation continues. Your transformation has begun. Through frost-covered windows, he could see the moon rising. But it looked different now. The familiar cratered surface seemed to shift and flow, revealing glimpses of what lay beneath its carefully maintained disguise. And in his mind, he heard Kane's voice clear as day. They're waking up, Tom. And you helped wake them. The shadows in his office had taken on distinct forms now, angular and precise, moving with deliberate purpose toward him. And deep below Houston, something answered the moon's signal with a rhythmic pulse of its own. The next set of recordings were fragmented, corrupted by some kind of electromagnetic interference that made the images warp and twist. Tom's body shook with cold as he watched. The geometric patterns on his skin now extending across his entire torso, pulsing in sync with the lunar crystals on screen. December 17th. Time unknown. Our chronometers stopped working the moment we entered the tunnel. Mitchell's voice was distorted, overlaid with a strange harmonic frequency. The walls, they're made of some kind of living metal. It responds to touch, reveals new patterns, new pathways. Houston, if you're still receiving, we're approximately 1,000 meters below the surface, though Chen says that measurement doesn't mean what we think it means down here. The camera struggled to capture the tunnel's interior. Its surfaces seemed to shift between states of matter, simultaneously solid and fluid. The symbols on the walls moved like schools of fish, forming complex equations before dissolving into new patterns. "Kane's taken point," Mitchell continued. "He says he can hear them guiding him. The whispers, they're getting louder. Not in English, not in any human language. But somehow we understand." The footage stabilized briefly, showing Kane standing before a junction where the tunnel split into multiple branches. His suit's surface had become almost translucent, the geometric patterns beneath pulsing with their own inner light. "They're showing us the way." Kane's voice had an echo now, as if multiple versions of him were speaking simultaneously. "Each path leads to a different truth, different facets of their purpose. The moon, it's not just a satellite. It's a machine, a living archive. And we're the first ones they've invited inside since they installed it." Chen's voice cut through, higher pitched with barely controlled panic. "The atmospheric readings don't make sense. The space in here, it's folded, compressed, like pages in a book. Each chamber contains... Static overwhelmed his words. The camera swung wildly as Mitchell ran to Chen's position. When the image cleared, they were standing before a vast vertical shaft. The beam of their lights couldn't reach its top or bottom. Along its walls, massive structures pulsed with the same blue light as the surface crystals. "Oh God," Chen whispered. "Those aren't structures. Those aren't machines. They're..." The video corrupted again. Tom's computer screen flashed with random symbols before displaying a new message. "Witnessing protocol activated. Integration beginning." The next clear segment showed the team deeper in the tunnel complex. The walls had changed, becoming transparent in places to reveal spaces that seemed to extend impossibly far beyond them. In these spaces, shapes moved that defied Euclidean geometry. "The whispers are constant now," Mitchell reported, his voice becoming more detached. "They're teaching us their language, showing us what the moon really is, what it's been doing all these years. Kane's almost completely translated the first chapter of their history. The truth about why they chose our planet, why they needed to watch us so closely." The camera turned to show Kane pressing his hand against one of the walls. Where he touched, the surface became like liquid mercury. Rippling outward, symbols flowed up his arm, across his faceplate, seeming to sink into the material of his suit. "They're not hostile," Kane said, but his voice was barely recognizable now. "They're curious. We're an experiment they've been running. The moon, the tides, the effect on our evolution, all carefully calibrated, and now we've reached the testing threshold. They want to see if we're ready." Suddenly, all the lights in the tunnel went out. In the darkness, something moved, something huge. The camera's night vision activated automatically, revealing walls that were no longer walls, but masses of shifting geometric forms that seemed to breathe. "Houston." Mitchell's last transmission was barely a whisper. "If anyone finds this, the moon isn't just watching us, it's been preparing us. And I think we just triggered the next phase." In Tom's office, the patterns on his skin had begun to glow with the same blue light as the lunar crystals. The shadows around him had solidified into angular forms that moved with deliberate intelligence. And through his window, the moon seemed larger than it should be possible, its surface now visibly shifting to reveal what lay beneath its familiar face. The humming had become a clear signal now, and in his mind, he could understand what it was saying. "Preparation complete. Initiation commencing." Something cold touched his shoulder, its geometry impossible, its purpose ancient and patient. The next segment of footage started abruptly, showing Commander Mitchell's helmet cam as the team entered a vast hexagonal chamber. Tom watched through increasingly frosted vision. the geometric patterns across his body, now pulsing in perfect synchronization with both his heartbeat and the lunar transmission still humming through his office. Archive room reached. Estimated time 8:45 p.m. Lunar Standard. Mitchell's voice had developed an unsettling resonance. The chamber extends beyond our visual range. Crystalline structures appear to be data storage units. They're showing us something. The camera panned across walls that seemed to stretch into infinity. Massive crystal columns rose from floor to ceiling, each pulsing with internal light that formed moving images, like liquid memories trapped in glass. "My God," Chen's voice cracked. "These are historical records, but not just of Earth, of everything. The entire solar system, the galaxy. Look, that column shows the formation of Earth, but something's wrong with the timeline." The footage focused on one crystal pillar. Within its depths, images played like a film reel, Earth forming from cosmic dust, but with impossible precision. Mathematical equations floated in the space around the images, describing gravitational forces being manipulated with deliberate purpose. Kane approached another crystal, his movements now eerily smooth. This one shows the impact that formed the moon, but it wasn't an accident. Look at the trajectories, the calculated angles. They engineered it. Placed the moon exactly where they needed it to influence our planet's development. The camera turned to show Chen examining what appeared to be star charts etched into the floor. But these weren't static maps. The stars moved, showing eons of celestial dance in minutes. At the center of each chart was Earth's moon, depicted not as a natural satellite, but as something else entirely. "Commander," Chen's voice shook. "These charts, they show installation dates. The moon was placed in orbit, but not just ours. They've been installing them throughout the galaxy, each one precisely calibrated to guide the evolution of different species." Mitchell's heavy breathing filled the audio as he approached a central crystalline structure larger than the others. As he drew closer, the surface began to react, flowing like quicksilver to reveal images that made the camera's digital systems glitch and distort. "This is impossible," Mitchell whispered. "These records show periodic adjustments to lunar influence. The tides, the gravitational effects, subtle radiations, all modified over millions of years to shape our development. We're not just being watched. We're being cultivated." Suddenly, all the crystals in the chamber pulsed in unison. The images within them synchronized, showing the same scene from multiple angles. A massive geometric entity, its form constantly shifting, reaching down through space to carefully position Earth's moon in its orbit. Kane stepped forward, his suit now almost transparent, the patterns beneath pulsing in sync with the archive crystals. They're ready to show us more, to explain why they chose Earth, why they've been guiding our evolution towards this specific moment. These aren't just archives, they're... A high-pitched tone cut through the audio, making Tom's computer speakers shriek. The camera spun wildly, capturing glimpses of something emerging from between the crystal columns. The shapes were impossible, geometric forms that seemed to fold through dimensions that shouldn't exist. "Chen!" Mitchell's scream was distorted, stretched. "Get back from the crystals. They're not storage units, they're..." Chen's voice cut through, pitched with terror. "They're eggs. Oh God, they're eggs. And they're starting to hatch." The video dissolved into static. In Tom's office, the geometric patterns on his skin began to move with new purpose, forming complex equations that burned with cold fire. Through his frost-covered window, the moon hung impossibly large, its surface now visibly rippling as something beneath began to stir. His computer screen flashed one final message. Incubation period complete. Emergence protocols activated. The shadows around him had solidified into forms that hurt his eyes to look at, and in his mind, he could hear Kane's voice speaking, in harmonics that human vocal cords could never produce. Now you understand, Tom, why we had to hide the truth. Why NASA could never go back. The moon isn't just watching anymore. It's time for the next phase to begin. From deep below Houston, something answered the lunar signal. The ground began to tremble with a rhythmic pulse that matched the patterns flowing across Tom's transforming skin. The next recording began with emergency alarms blaring in the background. The camera footage was heavily distorted, showing only fragments of images between bursts of static. Tom watched through increasingly altered vision. The geometric patterns had spread to his eyes now, making him see the world through crystalline facets. December 18th. Time meaningless now. Mitchell's voice was barely recognizable. Chen is gone. Something took him in the archive chamber. Kane says he's been integrated, but he's not making sense anymore. We're trying to make our way back to the surface, but the tunnels, they're changing. The footage stabilized momentarily, showing corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they watched. The walls flowed like liquid metal, geometric patterns forming and dissolving, creating new pathways while sealing others. They're herding us, Kane's voice echoed strangely, as if coming from multiple locations at once. Don't you see, Commander? This was always the plan. We're not escaping. We're being processed, prepared. Like they prepared the moon all those millions of years ago. The camera swung wildly as Mitchell ran. Behind him, something moved in the darkness, shapes that seemed to fold through space itself, leaving trails of crystalline light in their wake. They cast no shadows, instead bending light around themselves in ways that defied physics. The beings, Mitchell panted, they're not chasing us, they're changing us. Like they changed Kane, like they took Chen. Their touch, it rewrites you, rebuilds you according to their geometries. I can feel the patterns spreading under my skin. The video jumped to a new segment. Kane stood at the junction in the tunnels, his suit now completely transparent, revealing his body beneath, or what had once been his body. His form was composed entirely of shifting geometric patterns, pulsing with the same blue light as the crystals. Don't fight it, Commander. Kane's voice resonated through multiple harmonics. They've shown me everything. Why they built the moon. Why they've been watching us. Humanity was never meant to stay as we are. We're just prototypes. Early models. They're ready to upgrade us now. The camera shook as Mitchell backed away from his transformed crewmate. Through gaps in the flowing walls, impossible spaces could be seen. Vast chambers filled with crystalline structures that might have been technology, or might have been alive, or both. This is Commander Mitchell, final log. His voice trembled. If anyone finds this, stay away from the moon. What we thought was a satellite is really an incubator, a metamorphosis engine. And now that we've reached their designated technical threshold, they're starting the next phase of their experiment. The changes I'm seeing in Kane, in myself, were being rewritten on a quantum level. The beings appeared again, their geometric forms rippling through space like living mathematics. Where they touched the walls, reality seemed to crystallize, patterns spreading outward like frost. They're beautiful, Kane whispered, his form beginning to merge with the patterns around him. Can't you see it, Commander? This is evolution, this is transcendence. Soon all of humanity will be ready. The moon has been preparing us for this moment since before we were human. The camera caught one clear image of the beings. Impossible geometries that somehow formed bodies. Their surfaces constantly shifting between states of matter and energy. They moved with precise, deliberate purpose, reaching for Mitchell with appendages that branched into infinite fractals. No, please! Mitchell's last words dissolved into harmonic frequencies as the beings surrounded him. This isn't... We weren't meant to. The video cut out. On Tom's computer screen, new text appeared. Your integration is proceeding as designed. Prepare for final transformation. In his office, Tom could no longer distinguish between his body and the geometric patterns that had consumed it. The shadows around him had fully materialized into beings identical to those from the video, their impossible forms moving with patient purpose. Through his crystallizing vision, he saw the moon pulsing with new intensity. Its surface had begun to crack, revealing the vast geometric mechanism beneath, and in his transforming mind, he finally understood. This was just the beginning. The next phase of human evolution was about to begin, and it would start with him. The final intact video file opened with pure static before resolving into Commander Mitchell's face, or what remained of it. His features had become fluid, geometric patterns flowing beneath translucent skin that sparkled with crystalline formations. Final log entry. I no longer know the time or date. They've shown me everything. The truth about the moon, about humanity's purpose. I have to record this while I can still think in human terms. The camera view was distorted, showing both the tunnel and overlapping dimensions simultaneously. Through the crystalline walls, vast mechanisms could be seen working with mathematical precision, maintaining the careful illusion of a natural satellite. The moon isn't just a station or an outpost, Mitchell's voice resonated across multiple frequencies. It's a metamorphosis engine, a cosmic cocoon designed to guide an entire species through directed evolution. And Earth is just one of countless evolutionary experiments they're running throughout the galaxy. The footage shifted, showing Kane fully transformed, his body now a living constellation of geometric patterns that moved with liquid grace. He stood before a massive crystalline display that showed the true history of Earth's development. They selected Earth billions of years ago, Kane explained, his voice harmonizing with subsonic frequencies. The moon was installed to create specific conditions, tides to draw life from the oceans, gravitational forces to shape our development, subtle radiations to guide our neural evolution. Everything was designed to create beings capable of achieving their next stage of existence. The camera turned to show Chen, or what Chen had become, a shifting matrix of light and geometry that somehow still retained a hint of human form. He moved through spaces that shouldn't exist, leaving trails of crystalline growth in his wake. The space program, Mitchell continued, our drive to reach the moon, it wasn't human curiosity. It was them calling us home, testing if we were ready to learn the truth. Each Apollo mission was monitored, evaluated. Until now, until we proved we could comprehend what they needed to show us. The beings appeared again, moving through the chamber with deliberate purpose. But now the camera could properly capture their true form. Entities of pure living mathematics, their bodies constructed from geometric patterns that rewrote reality around them. They're the architects, Mitchell's voice distorted as they approached, ancient beyond comprehension. They seed universes with life, guide its evolution, and when a species is ready, they transform them, upgrade them, integrate them into their collective, and now it's humanity's turn. The video showed Mitchell looking down at his hands as they dissolved into crystalline patterns. The changes can't be stopped now. The signal has been sent. The moon itself is beginning to transform, revealing its true nature. Soon, everyone on Earth will begin to see the patterns, begin to change, like I'm changing, like we all changed down here. The camera captured one final shot of the lunar tunnel complex, a vast geometric machine disguised as planetary crust, designed with one ultimate purpose: to incubate and transform an entire species. This is why NASA can never return. Mitchell's last words came in harmonic waves. The moon isn't what we thought. It never was. It's not a destination. It's a chrysalis, and it's finally ready to complete its purpose, to wake up, to transform us all. The video ended with a burst of crystalline light. In Tom's office, the transformation had nearly completed. His consciousness expanded through geometric dimensions as the being surrounded him with patient purpose. Through walls that had become transparent to his new vision, he could see the changes beginning. Patterns spreading through the earth, beneath Houston, through the air, through every living thing. Above, the moon's surface had started to dissolve, revealing the vast metamorphosis engine beneath. His computer displayed one final message before dissolving into pure geometry. Global transformation. Protocols initiated. Thank you for your participation in this evolutionary step. The next phase had begun, and somewhere in orbit, disguised as Earth's faithful satellite, an ancient machine stirred to life, ready to complete its billion-year mission. The final files on the corrupted drive weren't videos, but a series of classified documents and transcripts. Tom could barely focus on them now through his crystallizing vision, the geometric patterns having almost completely transformed his perception. Top secret, eyes only, Joint Chiefs meeting transcript, January 15th, 1974. Reason, Apollo 18 incident. Begin transcript. General Morrison, the situation is beyond containment. The last transmission we received from Apollo 18. NASA Director, we need to destroy everything, every record, every piece of data. The public can never know. Admiral Chen, David Chen's father. My son, what you showed me, that thing in the video wasn't my son anymore. General Morrison, the lunar surface is showing increased activity. The patterns are spreading. If we don't act now. Static interference noted in recording. NASA Director, the Soviet space program reported similar incidents. They've agreed to cease all lunar operations. They're as frightened as we are. Document continues on next page. February 1st, 1974. Reason, immediate cessation of lunar operations. 1. All Apollo missions permanently terminated. 2. Cover story, budget cuts and lack of public interest. 3. All personnel involved in Apollo 18 to be relocated and monitored. 4. Establishment of orbital monitoring station to track lunar surface changes. 5. Implementation of protocol, dark mirror, continuous observation of known transformation sites. Attached note, handwritten. The changes are spreading. 3 research team members showed signs after analysing the Apollo 18 data. Had to be contained. Facility has been sealed. God help us if this gets out. Incident report, March 15th, 1974. Houston facility, B7. Multiple staff members reported geometric patterns appearing on skin. Unusual crystalline growths observed in storage areas. 2 security personnel missing after investigating strange lights. Facility scheduled for immediate lockdown. All materials to be sealed and classified above top secret. Final page, heavily redacted. Final warning transmission from Apollo 18. Do not return, the moon is redacted. Every mission, every landing was just redacted. They're ready now. They're coming to redacted. Cannot stop the transformation once it begins. Patterns spreading. Changes irreversible. If you're reading this, you're already part of their redacted. Termination order. Immediate effect. All lunar research programs suspended indefinitely. Cover story to be disseminated through media channels. Destroy all evidence of Apollo 18. Monitor all former NASA personnel for signs of redacted. Establish protocol. Nightfall. Emergency response to lunar emergence. End of documents. In Tom's transforming vision, the text began to shift and flow, revealing hidden patterns within the words themselves. The beings around him moved closer, the geometric forms resonating with the same frequencies now, pulsing through his crystallizing body. Through the window, the moon's surface had become almost transparent, its its true nature visible to his altered perception. The vast mechanism beneath was fully awakening, ready to begin its final protocol. His phone rang. NASA security, probably realizing the files had been accessed. But it was too late. The transformation had begun, not just in him, but everywhere the moon's light touched. The last human thought Tom had was an understanding of why they'd tried so hard to hide the truth, why NASA could never go back. Because the moon wasn't just watching anymore, it was ready. The next morning, Tom Cooper's house stood empty. Local police responded to calls from concerned neighbours who reported strange lights and geometric patterns in the windows the night before. When they entered, they found only his empty office, a thin layer of crystalline frost coating every surface. On his computer screen, a final message glowed with an unnatural blue light. The integration has begun. All protocols now active. His case files from decades at NASA were scattered across the desk, each page now covered in shifting geometric patterns that hurt the eyes to look at. In his journal, the last entry read, "I understand now. Every moon landing, every mission, we weren't exploring. We were being tested, evaluated. The moon let us think we were in control, studying it. But it was studying us, preparing us. The changes in my body aren't a virus or infection. They're an upgrade, an evolution. I can see the patterns everywhere now. In the walls, in the air, in every human cell. We're all going to change. We were always going to change. I have to go now. They're waiting for me. If anyone finds this, look up at the moon tonight. Really look. You'll see what it's becoming. What we're all becoming." At observatories around the world, astronomers began noting subtle anomalies in lunar orbital patterns. The moon's surface albedo had changed, though only certain instruments could detect it. And in classified NASA facilities, long-dormant sensors started recording frequencies that hadn't been detected since December 1973. 3 days after Tom's disappearance, Dr. Sarah Martinez, the lead astronomer at the Arecibo Observatory, noticed something unusual in her lunar observations. The moon's surface appeared to be shifting, almost flowing, when viewed through specific wavelengths. She prepared a report, attached her findings, and sent it to NASA headquarters. The next day, her office was found empty. Her final computer entry read, "I see the patterns now. They're beautiful. Don't look for me. Look at the moon instead. Look at what we're becoming." In a highly classified room deep beneath Houston, emergency alerts began flashing. The geometric patterns first documented by Apollo 18 were appearing with increasing frequency. The moon's surface was becoming active, its ancient machinery awakening after billions of years of patient observation. And in homes and cities around the world, people began to notice strange dreams of crystalline structures and mathematical perfection, dreams of transformation and transcendence, dreams of what waited beneath the moon's familiar face. The final phase had begun. Tom Cooper's body was never found, but on clear nights people sometimes report seeing unusual patterns in the moon's light, geometric shapes that seem to move with purpose. And if you look very carefully at your own skin in that light, you might notice something changing, growing, evolving, because the moon isn't just watching anymore, it's waking up. And so are we.